Whether you're a Radiant or an Iron player, there's always something new to learn in Valorant. So without further ado, here are 100 useful things you should know for Valorant. In Icebox, if the spike is ever planted in this position, just know that you can defuse while on the rope, which can be useful if the enemy has lineups. You can use Jett smokes to negate Sova's recon dart even if it looks like it's scanning. You can place Omen smokes halfway into the ground and still walk past Chamber and Killjoy's traps. This is useful for bypassing trips while still maintaining vision. You should face the wall when planting the spike so that its diffuse radius becomes a bit smaller. Viper's Molly and Sage's Slow Orbs have the same trajectory, so you can use the same lineups for both agents. You can use the sound radius on your radar to do improvised lineups as Killjoy and Viper, and technically Sage. You can use pings to mark sections of the map that you can't see. This is useful for shooting through smokes and walls. Knifing actually makes an audio cue, so be careful if you want to be sneaky. If you like your teammates as crosshair, you can type /cc in chat to copy their crosshair profile to your settings. You can turn your detail settings to low to avoid unnecessary clutter from blocking your screen. You can use Killjoy's Alarmbot and headshot angles to tank a bullet for you. You can also use Killjoy's turret and headshot angles and peek between the legs for additional cover. And if you really want to be annoying, you can place a spray behind you to throw off the enemy's aim when looking at you. That's also why they don't let you equip overly distracting sprays for mid-round. You can use Astra's suck to get people off the spike to delay the defuse. Conversely, you can also use her suck on common plant spots to move the enemies into the open. If you aim down and look lower while in Viper's ultimate, you can see enemies a little quicker than if you were to look straight. You can drop down ropes silently by holding shift at the last second you attach. You can move up or down on the ropes just by looking in an upward or downward direction. You can see how loud you're being by looking at the radar and use that to determine where enemies can hear you. The radar oftentimes sees enemies that you probably missed. If you have a longer gun like an operator or guardian, be careful when you're hiding in a corner because the barrel of your gun can stick out. You can control the voice volume of your teammates individually by pressing escape and going to the slider in the match tab. If you don't know how much to save for the next round, making sure you have at least 3,900 credits will ensure you get full armor and a gun. 5,000 credits should ensure you a full set of util alongside it. Changing the scope settings on the marshal and operator to hold rather than toggle will not let you scope in faster. The spike glows red if the enemy is sticking to the defuse. You can use this to check if the enemy's on the spike or not without having to see the player. Neon stun has no vertical limit, so you can hit places like heaven by aiming at the bottom. Killjoy's Molly is unique because it can output damage through walls. If you buy a gun and drop it, you can't sell it anymore, so be careful. If you get blinded, you can still push up close and see your enemy. Skye's flash is a good way of gathering info since she plays a voice line if you've blinded any enemies. You can drop abilities or guns down the chute on breeze to fake the drop. Similarly, you can throw abilities or guns through sliding doors to open them. This also works on the bind portals. Most of the times, you can tell if someone disconnected if their ping doesn't move at all. You can get a friend to boost you up to positions otherwise impossible without an ability. If you don't have any friends, you can boost yourself with the Killjoy turret. You can boost yourself on the B pillar of breeze for a cheeky one and done. When you're in a custom game with cheats enabled, you can hold down E to recall your Viper wall. This can be useful for when testing out utility with Viper. Phantoms are better than Vandals at spraying through smokes because they don't have bullet tracers. If you can't see either, make sure to enable Show Bullet Tracers in your settings. It's useful for shooting back at enemies. You can pick up the spike with Omen's ultimate TP and cancel it. You can counter this by standing directly on top of the spike. You can flash Killjoy's turret to temporarily blind him. You can move a downed KO using Raze's satchel. Raze's satchel does more damage after one bleep. You can break the window on Ascent by throwing a gun at it. You can also break it using Omen's smoke. This can be useful for selling fakes. You can break Sage's wall with a spike play. You cannot open the bind portal from this side with Raze's boombot anymore. You can perform a convincing fake defuse by jumping while crouched and defusing midair. When you land, it'll make a sound that makes it as if you got off the spike. You don't take fall damage when falling off screens anymore. On Icebox, the A-side Viper one-way has been patched. You can disable this option called Show Corpses to get rid of all the dead bodies that appear in-game. Disabling corpses can remove the extra clutter on your screen and replace them with these more subtle coin things. You can jump down on these boxes to avoid taking fall damage when dropping down from Heaven and Haven. While you're on the rope and Fracture, using your classic is a little more accurate than it is shooting with your Vandal or Phantom. If you see someone going through the bind portals, it can be useful to look backwards while going in so that you have a better chance at fighting any campers. I'm surprised some people don't know this, but you can drop down garage windows silently. You can create one-way smokes with most controllers by placing the smoke on ledges. One-way smokes are useful because it gives you more vision than the enemy. You can tell when you have time to defuse or not by looking at the spike's animation. When you see this glowing sphere appear, that indicates that there's 7 seconds left to defuse. If you haven't already have the defuse, you should run. You can tell if the enemy is going to be buying full loadouts or saving by checking their money.
Yeah. How about we push Amy?
At best, they have half buys, or they buy everything with no util. You should give someone else a defuse if you have full ultimate charge to help them build theirs. If you want to drop the spike, do so in a position where enemies can't hear it because it gives off a loud sound cue that can tip off enemies. If you see an enemy hiding behind these boxes, just spam it. All of these boxes are wallbangable. If the enemy Yoru enters his ultimate form and you see the blue outline on your screen, that doesn't mean he's near you, it means that you're in his line of sight. If you have smokes and you need to defuse a spike, always smoke the spike and not the choke. The enemies can simply walk out of the choke to check if you're defusing, but they can't do that if you smoke the spike instead. It's always faster to switch to your secondary than reloading. You can strafe jump to get to places that you otherwise can't get to with normal jumps. You can tell who's using their ult by looking at the player icons at the top. If you play as Viper and you stand inside your smoke orb, picking up the orb gives you a roughly 250 millisecond peak advantage as a cloud dissipates faster for you than for your enemies. If you buy a Shorty on an eco round, it might be useful to drop it on the ground so when the round begins you can spawn with a free classic to use for later. If you drop a classic in pre-round, it'll just disappear when the round starts. If you hold your alt key, it'll reveal your teammates' utilities. While defending on Ascent, it's a good idea to destroy the door to put attackers at a disadvantage when taking the site. The same thing can be said about the market door in B. If you're using a shotgun, you don't have to aim at their head. Instead, try aiming towards the neck since that's how you can output the most damage. Don't repeek the same angles. It's a good habit to jiggle in place rather than just being stationary on the off chance that someone is aiming at you. You'll make it harder for them to hit your head. You don't have to reload after every kill. Keep an eye on the enemy ult charge counters. You can figure out who's playing where by looking at whose ult charge goes up. If you're low on HP, it's better to play a headshot angle so the enemies have to work harder to kill you. If you're in need of higher frame rates, you can try going to Task Manager, going down to Valorant.exe, right-clicking it, and setting the priority to high. This won't guarantee higher FPS, but it will force your computer to allocate more resources to running the game. Your radar displays your vision. You can use this to see what your teammates across the map are watching. Brimstone's stim beacon does not grant increased fire rate for pistols, except for the frenzy. Reyna's blind has no range limit, meaning that you can blind someone from across the map. As Jett, activating Updraft and jumping at the same time lets you reach higher positions. Jump crouching lets you jump higher than normal. You can use this on certain boxes like this mid box in Split, mid box in Ascent, and these logs in Haven. Your gun is not accurate while on the ropes. If you're trying to defuse a spike, check to see if the enemy has any post-plant agents like Brimstone or Sova with their ultimates. Fake the defuse by tapping the spike to bait out enemy utility. If you have an ultimate ability activated like Chamber or Jett after a successful retake, use up your ult so you can defuse and begin building up your ult charge again. If your team has complete control of the site, make sure to plant in the open so it'll make it difficult for the enemy to defuse as they're exposed to multiple angles. Don't start planting the spike if your team doesn't have the site. You can jump to this spot on Ascent without any abilities, but it takes a lot of practice. If your team calls that an enemy is low, don't aim for the head, just go for the body shot. The burst fire on the classic is accurate while jumping. You can use the ropes to boost yourself up on generator. You can get to top screens too. You can stand on this area of Haven CT for an unexpected off angle. Fall damage ignores armor, that means you can die via fall damage even if you have armor. You walk faster with your knife out. You can tell if a wall is wallbangable if the bullet holes are dark. If they're light and shallow, it means your bullets aren't going through. And finally, if you press escape, you can click on exit to desktop. This is useful for going outside. And that's going to be it for the list. Let me know in the comments if you already knew all of these or if there's anything else that you would include in the list. I hope everyone's had a good start to the new year. Thanks for watching and I'll see you around.